Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we're in Matthew chapter 23, and we're going to stay right here. Today is very sobering law enforcement takeaway that I really feel like we need to spend some time on. So um, I'm pretty much going to spend this entire time on Matthew 23:23. Um, in chapter 23 of Matthew, Jesus starts giving warnings to the Pharisees and to all the people, but it's mainly to the leaders um, about their egotistical behavior, about some of the things they do in their pride and their arrogance. But reading all this, we get down in verse 13, and Jesus starts talking about the 8 woes. And a woe is the dictionary. I looked it up in Webster's dictionary, and it is, well, I can't see exactly where I put it, but we'll get to it soon. But a woe to me is like the opposite of a blessing. Jesus pronounces a blessing on those who do certain things. He also says woe to those people who do certain things. So you can be blessed, or you can be like, oh man, it's terrible, because in these actions and this character, you're bound to face blah blah blah. Pride comes before the fall, so woe to those who are prideful, because they will fall, kind of thing. So in these woes, there's one in particular, Matthew 23:23. It says, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier provisions of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. But these are the things you should have done without neglecting the others. So to me, I see, and I don't want to say just law enforcement in this, I see some of my personal behaviors as a law enforcement officer in this. And usually if I'm guilty of something, and I talk about it, I find other people are like, yeah, me too, so uh, I'm telling you what I've done. Maybe you can learn from my mistakes. Um, in your law enforcement career, have you ever been guilty of giving a ticket, putting someone in jail, or taking some kind of law enforcement action just because you could do it? And man, if you just sit there and say, no, my conscience is clean, good for you. If you internalize this and go, yeah, I have, well, you're in the same boat with me. Um, a, a specific event comes to mind. I used to, for years, did DWI enforcement. Worked midnight shift, and I mean, I was just all about it. I loved every aspect of it. I loved the getting out at night and just observing traffic until I found something that stuck out like a sore thumb, and recognized that, hints and clues would usually lead me to believe that it was intoxicated driver, pull them over, investigate. I loved every bit of that. I even loved going back and doing the paperwork. I loved the challenge of getting a breath test and doing the paperwork for it. I loved going to court and testifying and trying to prove up my case. So I mean, I was on this constantly. There's one or two occasions where I pulled somebody over, and yeah, they were legally intoxicated. They could legally go to jail. But there's one, two examples specifically in my memory that I knew in the moment, this person probably doesn't need to go to jail. I can handle this a different way. I have a different avenue of taking care of this, but that's just one more DWI to add to my monthly total. Yeah, I think I'll just put them in jail. After all, it's their fault. They're drinking and driving. And it was. I'm not taking anything away from that. But, um, some 15 years later, because my conscience is still telling me, man, you could have done something different for that person. It tells me that I probably didn't do the right thing. I did what the law said, but I neglected justice and mercy. Just like this says here. Um, You neglected the weightier provisions of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. But these things you should have done without neglecting the others. I should have obeyed the law and taken them off the street so they wouldn't hurt anybody. But would justice have been done if I had given a little mercy and made a provision for them to get home? And anyway, like I said, I am not telling you as law enforcement officers not to do your job at all. Loved my career. And most of the time, you've got to take action. That's what you're hired for. I mean, that's how you bring about justice. There's just a few instances where justice can be handled in a different manner than just constantly enforcing everything and writing every ticket for everything you can write a ticket for, putting everybody in jail for everything you can put them in jail. Just because you can doesn't always mean you should. There's room for mercy and grace and compassion. I would readily admit there were years where I was on the street where I didn't have much grace or compassion or mercy. I mean, I admit it. I see it in myself. Luckily, my last couple of years, I was able to recognize it probably for my last 8 or 9 years, and it changed my perspective. I never neglected my job and never neglected an enforcement action when it needed to be done. But you can do it with grace and compassion and mercy. And I thought this was so important. I've got it in red here, warning for law enforcement officers, because this is something that we need to hear. If you know me or followed any of my stuff, you know that one of my favorite verses is Micah 6:8. It says, what does the Lord require of you, O man, but to seek justice, where cops would get that, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Justice and mercy go hand in hand. And sometimes in law enforcement, we're all about the justice part, but we're not so ready to dole out the mercy part. And we should always be walking humbly with our God. There's that word humble that works its way in just about at least once a week, we hear something about humility. That's how important it is. Jesus was saying, woe to you who practice law without mercy. If you look in the dictionary, here it is. Woe is defined as a condition of deep suffering from misfortune, affliction, or grief. Pronouncing woe on someone is the opposite of pronouncing a blessing. So I just wanted to mention that today. I hope you read up and got some good takeaways from some of the other verses. Tomorrow we're going to be in Matthew chapter 24, Mark chapter 13, Luke chapter 21. So read ahead. In the meantime, you guys be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.